First, we're going to begin with some breaking news. An Erie County Court jury delivering a fast verdict in the case of a North Collins man accused of raping and torturing his disabled sister. Luke Wright's attorney had claimed that Wright was mentally challenged himself and did not know any better, but the prosecutors say he did. That verdict today, again, guilty on all counts. Channel 2's Scott Brown and Marissa Bailey have been covering this disturbing trial. They're joining us live now from the courthouse. And Scott, we'll begin with you.
Ron, as you said, jurors had 10 different counts to consider against Luke Wright in the rape and torture of his sister Laura Cummings. And to show you just how strongly they felt about the case the prosecution presented, they deliberated for only 4 hours before finding Luke Wright guilty and responsible on each of those 10 counts against him. Now, the defense had tried to say that a combination of mental retardation and brain damage left Wright not knowing that the rape and torture of his sister were wrong, but the jury was buying none of that. On 4 of the counts against Wright, he was charged as acting in concert with his mother, Eva Cummings, in terms of sodomizing Laura with a broomstick, tying her to a chair, and beating her. Eva Cummings has already pled guilty to suffocating Laura. Legalities aside, was there any real distinction between the mother and the brother in terms of how Laura was treated?
The only person who could probably answer that question is no longer here to answer it. I think it's safe to say that all Laura knew, especially the last couple months of her life, was pain and torture. And I think it's fair to say that both her mother and her brother were equally responsible for it.
Now, this is why we do this job, to speak for someone who can't speak now and really, during her life, was not able to speak either. This was the first time that Laura got to tell her story. And that's our honor to do that.
As you could tell by that comment from Kristen St. Mary, one of the 2 prosecutors in the case, very emotional for them. Kristen St. Mary said she broke down in tears as the verdict was being read. And it was emotional not only for the prosecutors, Marissa, but for the jurors as well.
Well, that's right, Scott. You know, 2 jurors openly wept as those counts were being read one by one today. Another juror, stared at Luke Wright the entire time they read off those charges of guilty against him. Now, not a single juror wanted to talk to us on camera today. 3 gentlemen walked out and said they weren't ready to talk at this point. Each other juror was escorted out by an Erie County Sheriff's deputies to their cars. Sort of got the feeling they wanted to be over with this case. We did catch up with an alternate juror today, and he had this to say.
Yes, my personal feeling is I feel he is guilty. It was difficult. There was a lot of instances where it was very uncomfortable seeing what this poor girl went through and the life that they unfortunately lived, and it was definitely disturbing.
Now, it is worth reminding everyone, 45 jurors in 3 days were dismissed from this case, being that they just didn't want to hear the intimate details of the disturbing testimony that was going to come forward. Those jurors, along with the alternates, were the ones that did hear that testimony. Also important to note that when, we cover cases like this, a lot of times you get the prosecution side, you get the defense's side. Once in a while, you get a juror to talk, and many times we get the families to talk as well. Important to note there wasn't a single person in court today as this verdict was read for Laura Cummings or Luke Wright. Just speaks to really how this family has been torn apart by the tragedy of this case. Ron, we will send it back inside to you.
Okay, thank you, Marissa and Scott.